Chapter 1 of The Browns at Mount Hermon. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Browns at Mount Hermon by Pansy. Chapter 1. Mary Brown, Circleville. She held the open letter in her hand, regarding it with a bewildered yet whimsical look. It was unlike any letter that she had ever before read. She took up the envelope and gave it careful scrutiny. Mary Brown, Circleville, Union County, blank. That was all. "It is my name, certainly," she said aloud, "though I am used to a middle letter at least, and some sort of a prefix. Still, how am I to know that some correspondent has not forgotten both? It matches, I am sure, with my present surroundings." She gave a swift, amused glance at the room as she spoke. A large, bare room, with a dull ingrain carpet on the floor, whose too pronounced pattern was fading out in spots. Green paper shades at the windows, pierced by innumerable tiny holes, through which the sunshine filtered, revealing dust-filled corners that told of many slovenly sweepings. The bed was spread with a coarse coverlid that had become yellow with careless washings, and had been badly patched near the center. It was characteristic of the present occupant's instinct for observing small details which she would have been glad not to notice, that she knew the patch was laid on crooked, and was frayed around its badly sewed edges. Taken together, bed, carpet, curtains, and furniture, of which there were the fewest possible pieces, were unlike any that Mary Brown had ever before made use of. She had not even realized that there were such rooms. Yet she was evidently a guest of honor in one of the best rooms of the Circleville Hotel, which name, painted in unnecessarily large letters, swung conspicuously over the central door of this long, low house that was sadly in need of paint. It was the only hotel in the village, and its accommodations, such as they were, had proved to be ample. No strangers, save those compelled by circumstances, stayed overnight in Circleville. Even its name was a misnomer. Why had the thought of circle ever been suggested by its one long, straggling street? The entire village had the appearance of having been left behind in the world's march. If Mary Brown had not been too listless to do so, she could have laughed over the strangeness of her being stranded in such a place as this. The circumstances connected with her coming had apparently been simple enough. Of course it had been quite unnecessary, as her guardian had taken pains to try to convince her. He had even laughed a little over her folly, and said there was no accounting for a woman's whims, and she had turned from him a trifle vexed, and certain that she would go then anyway. And she had gone, and come, a long journey, which involved her being a guest for a few hours at least in the Circleville Hotel. It was now the morning of the second day after her arrival, and so far as the business that had seemed to bring her was concerned, Mary Brown was ready to start on her return trip. But she was miserably conscious all the while that part of the business which had taken her from home was not yet settled, and she was by no means ready to return. This feeling had increased upon her all the while she was eating the very decent breakfast that the Circleville Hotel furnished, albeit she ate for the first time in her life with a plated fork, that had much of its plate washed away, and drank her coffee from a cup so thick that it called her curious attention to itself whenever she touched it. She had gone back to her room, and begun in a desultory fashion to repack her bag, all the while asking herself what possible excuse she could frame for remaining longer. And then had come that letter. "I took the liberty of bringing it right over to you, ma'am," the man from the freight depot had explained. "I was there when Jim Baker was sorting the mail, and I told him I knew the one to whom that letter belonged, and I would bring it over." She had thanked him, and had checked the temptation to give him a quarter for his trouble, under the feeling that he might be too manly for such return, and had broken the seal of her letter and begun to read, before taking time to wonder what correspondent could have written to her direct in this far-away little village. And then the contents of the letter began to hold her astonished and absorbed attention, she being too much bewildered at first to grasp its meaning or realize her mistake. The letter began abruptly, without more ceremony than the envelope had shown, simply, "Mary Brown," and proceeded at once to business. "I have at last made up my mind to try you for the summer, anyway. It is a long way to come for just a summer, I know, but if you don't suit me for any longer than that, there are plenty of places where you can try it again. I haven't any fault to find with what my niece says about you, but your inexperience makes it bad for me. Of course your mother's kitchen is very different from mine. Still, I'll venture it. You will certainly be better than nobody. Your uncle looking out for your ticket makes it safer for both of us. Of course I couldn't risk any money on an entire stranger. My daughter Aileen thinks I am very foolish to have a perfect stranger come so far. She says, for one thing, you will be so dreadfully lonesome without any of your mates that you can't stand it, but I tell her that a girl who is old enough to earn her living, and to have need for doing it, will have sense enough not to let homesickness hinder. There is no need for you to be especially lonesome either. The cook is Irish, to be sure, but she is a nice, respectable, good-natured girl, and there is no reason why you and she shouldn't get on together. Besides, there will be others. The table waiters are college girls, and of course you understand that
Sample complete. Ready to continue?